Welcome to Robert Pears Photography. This is Robert Pears. In this lesson, we are going to discuss white balance so you get an understanding of what it is, how to set a custom white balance, and we'll also explain the importance of white balance. As we look at particularly wedding photography, it is very important that we get the white balance correct. In many church halls, for example, they use a lot of tungsten light, and that tungsten light gives a yellowy tinge or tint to the picture, so that skin tones start to look incorrect, and reds become orange, blues become greens, so the actual colors become distorted based on that tungsten lighting. These pictures therefore become unacceptable to the customer. And therefore it's important that we correct the white balance up front to prevent producing pictures that simply are unacceptable. The goal of this lesson is, as I explained, to teach what white balance is and the importance of it, especially for saving of time in post-processing for photography and videography. The expectation is when you are done that you will understand white balance, and with that knowledge and power, we'll be able to set the white balance correctly going forward. This picture we'll come back to, but you'll discover the white balance is incorrect. But let's start by what is white balance. Well, white light is actually a mixture of different wavelengths of light combined together. If you had perfect white light, it would contain all wavelengths. But depending on the source of the white light, whether it's tungsten, fluorescent, daylight, that mixture of wavelengths varies. And while you, with your human eye and brain, can automatically correct, so when you go from outside to inside and you change sources, everything continues to look natural because your brain corrects for it. Cameras don't have that intelligence. They will guesstimate that this is white. They take various metering and they try to correct so that they have a basic idea of what white is. In this situation, they got it wrong. Some situations it is not an issue, but in most situations, when you get the white balance correct, it distorts all the other colors and can create pictures that are simply not pleasing. Some of the challenges that we face, particularly for wedding photography, is the tungsten lighting that's very common in church halls and places like that, where we get this yellowy tint that occurs that again distorts the colors, distorts skin tones, and makes things look wrong. So if you're taking photographs inside a house or inside a building, you may see this. Fluorescent lighting, which I'm sure you're aware of, creates that greeny tint. Again, as we become or we move towards more energy efficient light bulbs, that's becoming more predominant, and again we're going to have that issue arising. If it's set incorrectly, you go outside, you can end up with pictures that are bluey, just don't look right. Well, the white balance is incorrect. And what's very common for us is some kind of mixture. You're standing in a church hall, you have the flashlight, you have the tungsten, then you have the sunlight pouring in. And so this mixture of light creates a great challenge for a camera. What is true white light? And so it's important that we set it correctly. We take our pictures in a raw file format. The raw file format enables us to go in post taking the picture and make corrections. You'll see here is a raw file. You can see that there's a scale that goes from 0 to 10,000 Kelvin, and it refers to as temperature that enables me to go in and slide that scale and make a change. There's also a scale that has a tint on it that I can change. But getting it right up front saves a lot of time because you have to get this scale correct on both of those to get a correct white balance. Here's a close-up of that, and you can see that scale now, temperature, and this picture is at 7,350, and has a tint of -4 towards the green. So I can slide that scale on both the temperature and tint to get it correctly. There's also a dropper in Photoshop Raw that I can go and take something, and ideally I want to take something gray and set it. But as I go from picture to picture, that gray subject that I use may not be there, and so I can create inconsistencies from picture to picture. It is much better, therefore, to have a whiteboard that we use as a pop-up or a filter and set it a custom white balance in the camera so that you tell it this is white under these lighting conditions. So the best way, as I said, is to use, as you see in the picture here, a pop-up reflector whiteboard that we have, or that filter. The first thing and the most important thing is to make sure that the camera and everything is set up with the settings that you are going to use to photograph. If you're going to use flash, then the flash has to be used in the white balance. If you're not going to use flash, do not turn the flash on. So the sources of light, the conditions should be set the way they will be when you actually go ahead and photograph. If you're using the pop-up filter, you then would pop it up and you take a picture of that white reflector. If you're using the filter, you will turn the camera lens to manual focusing, screw on the filter, and take a picture. Screw it off and set the lens back to autofocus. We will then make changes in the camera, which we'll come to in a minute. You will then take a test shot and look to see if the picture looks natural. Does it look correct? Okay, how do we do it? Well, once we've taken that picture, you then go to the menu screen in the camera. Here you will see white balance, you will see set custom white balance. If I select on set custom white balance, press OK, it's going to ask what picture do you want to use to determine what white is. And you're going to take the picture you just took. Press OK. Then you're going to go back to white balance, which right now is set to automatic white balance. You're going to select that menu, and you'll get a series of icons. You'll see fluorescent, tungsten, flash, and you want to go to custom white balance. You're going to select that and press OK, and then select that white balance that you just did. Once that is all set, take a test shot and look. Does it look natural? If it looks natural, great. If not, redo, because it's common that the first time you may make a mistake. As I said before, we can, with raw files, go back and post-process, but for that, you need special software to read a raw file. If you're using JPEGs or we're doing videography, it is not as easy to go back and post-process and fix an incorrect white balance, and therefore it's really, really important that we get it right up front. Here's the earlier example that I gave. The pink picture is how the camera saw the image. The bluey purple is actually how it was. So that's where I've gone and corrected it. In this situation, it really doesn't make a difference because we get two great pictures. But you can see the significant difference in coloration that occurs by an incorrect white balance. So if I do something incorrectly in tungsten, that yellowy tint impacts and bleeds in and impacts all the colors. So it's important that we get it right up front. Now, sometimes you actually want to go in and change the white balance deliberately. In this situation, I actually made it a little colder because it's a snow scene, it's a winter scene, and I wanted the image to have a cold feel to it. If this was a sunset, maybe I want to take that white balance and take it a little higher than it actually is because I want it to feel warmer. In those situations, it's a deliberate choice, and I can see the picture, and the picture still looks the way I want it, and the colors come across correctly. The temperature scale. As I explained, white balance is considered a temperature scale going from 0 to 10,000 Kelvin. It's very blue at 0 and it's very yellow at the 10,000. So as you go along that scale, that coloration is going to change and it changes the color. So white becomes different, as you would think of that way. Tungsten runs between 2800 and 3000. I apologize for the typo. So 2800 and 3000 Kelvin, though I've seen it a little lower and a little higher. So if I set my camera strictly to tungsten, it doesn't mean it will get it correctly because maybe it's 2700 in this situation. Maybe I got a little mixture of daylight in there and it's closer to 3500. Daylight flash photography runs approximately 5500 Kelvin. Again, there's a range. Fluorescent is around 3800. Cloudy is 6800. So you can see if I go from daylight 5500 to cloudy at 6800, simply adding clouds to the sky and my white balance is dramatically changed. So a correct white balance produces more pleasing pictures because the colors are the way they should be. There may be times where you want to adjust the white balance to create an effect with a cooler picture down or warm it up, but that should be a choice you make and not be forced upon you because you took it incorrectly. A correctly set white balance, you will see the skin tones will look correct. Though I will admit that sometimes I find people have weird colored skin and look strange. You gotta look overall, look at all the colors, look at all the people, and it should look pleasing overall. A correct white balance should look right to the natural eye. And this is essential that we get it correctly if you are doing a videography or just recording in JPEG, because it's very difficult to post-process. As I explained, that correcting videography, for example, can take many, many, many hours of work to correct, and you still may not get it right. I can correct still pictures if I've taken it raw, but again, there's a problem with inconsistency. The white balance needs to be corrected every time the sources of light or mixture of those changes. So it's important that you become very much aware of the sources of light, and is the mixture changing? And if so, do the white balance. So the conclusion, very simple, is do a custom white balance. So every time you see the sources of light change, that mixture change, especially in challenging environments such as church halls, etc., do a custom white balance. Very quickly, pop up that filter, that pop-up reflector, take out the filter, take that picture, go into the computer, the camera menu, and correct until it's here's the picture that has white on it. Make that correction, then take a test shot, make sure it looks good. It takes about 2 minutes to do, and will save you a lot of heartache in the end. Well, I hope this has been helpful. If you have more questions, please feel free to contact us at Robert Pears Photography at 847-857-1046 or robert@robertpears.com. Thank you.